I wasn't planning to tell this story. Some things, they just don't leave your mind, you know? They live in you. Quiet at first, then louder over time. It's been almost a year since that night. I still hear the door click. Still remember the way my breath froze in my chest. I didn't ask for this. I didn't expect it. And no part of me feels proud for what happened. But I also can't lie, I think I stopped feeling normal long before it even began. Before I go any further, I want to be clear. This story deals with mature themes, family tension, emotional pain, and infidelity. If these subjects make you uncomfortable, I understand completely. You might want to stop watching here. But if you're still here, then I'll tell you exactly how it happened. The house got quiet after Dad left. Like, haunting quiet. I was 17 when he packed his stuff and left us with nothing but silence. No warning. No big fight. Just gone. 1 minute, we were all watching TV after dinner, and the next, he was a ghost in the driveway, closing the door behind him without a word. Mom didn't cry in front of me. Not even once. She washed the dishes that night like everything was normal. But I remember the way her fingers trembled under the faucet. I saw it. I just didn't know what to say. That's kind of how it stayed. Me watching her pretending not to be broken. Mom, Hazel, was always the strong one. She did everything. Worked 2 jobs. Paid the bills. Grocery runs. Laundry. Birthday cakes. All of it. But after Dad left, something changed in her. Not all at once. Just little things. She stopped doing her hair. Stopped singing to herself in the kitchen like she used to. She still smiled at the neighbors, but that light behind her eyes? It just faded. I guess I didn't realize it at the time, but she was grieving. Not just for him, for who she used to be. I remember one summer, years before everything fell apart, we went to this lake. Just the 3 of us. Dad grilled burgers on the dock. Mom wore this blue sundress and kept yelling at him not to splash her with water. She laughed all day. Her skin glowed in the sun, and I remember thinking she looked like someone out of a magazine. That was the last time I remember her looking free. I turned 18 the winter after Dad left. It was just me and Mom in that house. 2 strangers who used to be a family. I spent most of my time in my room. I had this little fridge in the corner, nothing fancy, just snacks and energy drinks. I told her it was so I wouldn't bug her, but the truth is, I didn't want to be around her. Or maybe, I didn't want her to be around me. There was guilt in her eyes every time we made eye contact. Like she felt sorry for dragging me into the wreckage of her life. But what she never saw was that I felt the same way. At 18, you're supposed to feel like a man. I didn't. I felt small. Confused. Hormonal as hell. And angry. Mostly angry. At him. At her. At myself. I was embarrassed by how often I thought about girls, or rather, how I didn't have any in my life. The girls at school treated me like wallpaper. And at home? There was no one. Just Mom, moving around the kitchen like a ghost. Wearing oversized sweaters, hair tied back, like she wanted to disappear. We didn't talk much. Some nights, she'd knock gently on my door, leave a sandwich or slice of leftover pie by the hallway wall, and walk away. I never said thank you. I should have. But I was stubborn, and maybe scared. Scared that if I opened my mouth, all my confusion would spill out. Mom wasn't just my mother. Not anymore. She was this presence, someone I didn't recognize. I'd catch myself staring when she bent over to get something from the bottom cabinet. Not proud of that. But when you're 18, and desperate for touch, and you see the only person who's ever been near you start looking like a woman again, something messes with your head. I hated myself for it. But it happened. Over and over again. She didn't deserve what came next. Neither did I. But that's where this story begins, in a house filled with silence, two broken people, and one night that would ruin everything we thought we understood. And if you're still here, I'll tell you exactly how it happened. If you're still with me, don't forget to like this video, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe for more stories like this. Trust me, there's so much more to uncover. There's something about being alone that starts to rot your mind if you sit in it too long. At first, it feels like peace. No questions. No interruptions. No expectations. Just you and the silence. But then the silence gets heavy. Starts talking to you. Feeding your worst thoughts. That's where I lived. Every single day after school, I'd come home and go straight to my room like it was a bunker. Like I was trying to outlive the war inside my own house. I'd shut the door and barely move for hours. Sometimes I'd scroll through my phone until the battery died. Other times I'd just stare at the ceiling fan. Watching it spin. Counting the blades. Anything to avoid thinking. Anything to stop myself from going out there and seeing her. Hazel. She tried at first. I won't lie and say she didn't. She'd knock sometimes. Soft, like she didn't want to wake something. She'd call out, ask if I wanted dinner. Sometimes I'd pretend not to hear. Other times I'd grunt. Most days, I'd wait until I heard her leave the kitchen, then sneak out and heat something up on my own. We existed like strangers in the same house, orbiting around each other but never touching. And in the middle of all that cold space was that little refrigerator in the corner of my room. Just humming quietly, always full of the same three things: bottled water, protein shakes, and leftover sandwiches. At first, it was practical. I told myself it was just to avoid her cooking. But over time, that fridge became something else. A symbol. A wall. A way to keep her out. It buzzed all night, even when everything else was still. That hum, it was the only sound I heard in the dark. Funny how something so small can feel so huge in a quiet room. I could feel her watching me sometimes. Not in a creepy way. More like, she wanted to reach out but didn't know how. She'd linger in the hallway, standing there with a laundry basket or a mug of tea, probably working up the nerve to knock. Some nights she would. Most nights, she wouldn't. And the nights she didn't, those were worse. Because I'd lie there wondering why. I'd imagine her in the living room, curled up on the couch under one of those old blankets she kept from college. Staring at the TV without really watching anything. Probably crying when she thought I wouldn't hear. Probably blaming herself for everything she never said out loud. And me? I just lay in bed pretending none of it mattered. Pretending I wasn't thinking about her. Then came that night. I don't remember what day of the week it was. Doesn't matter. But I remember the smell. She made something sweet, banana bread or muffins, maybe. I hadn't eaten since the day before, and I think she knew. She knocked once and didn't wait for a reply before pushing the door open. She walked in holding a little plate. Still warm. Said she thought I might be hungry. Her voice was soft, almost like she was apologizing for existing. She looked different that night. I don't know why. Same robe. Same tired face. But something was off. Or maybe it was me that was off. She glanced at the towels on my floor and didn't say anything at first. Just sat the plate down on my nightstand and stood there awkwardly. Like she wanted to say something but kept choking on the words before they came out. And then, quietly, she asked, "Are you okay?" I shrugged. Didn't even look at her. Just kept staring at the wall like it had all the answers I didn't. She looked around my room. The dark curtains. The fridge humming in the corner. The pile of clothes in the same chair I never sat in. Then her eyes landed on me. On the shape under the blanket. "Were you doing something?" she asked. Her tone wasn't angry. It wasn't disgusted. It was something else. Something I couldn't name. Concern. Confusion. Maybe even curiosity. I said no. Of course, I said no. Even though we both knew it wasn't the truth. She paused for a second, looking like she didn't believe me. But then she nodded, just once, and said she'd leave me alone. That should have been the end of it. But it wasn't. She walked out without shutting the door all the way. That was new. She always closed it before. But not that time. She left it cracked. Like she wanted to leave part of herself in the room. Like some invisible tether between us needed to stay. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her standing there. I could still smell her perfume, faint, floral, and a little powdery. That scent clung to the room long after she was gone. And the worst part? I didn't feel angry. I didn't feel violated. I felt seen. For the first time in months, someone looked at me and didn't turn away. The next day, everything was weird. She didn't bring it up. Didn't act like anything had happened. But something had shifted. She knocked on my door twice that day. Once in the morning with eggs. Once at night with some folded clothes. She lingered each time. Her voice sounded warmer. And I caught myself watching her, not just glancing, but really watching. The way her fingers moved when she adjusted her sleeves. The way her hair slipped over her shoulder when she leaned forward. And it made me feel disgusting. This was my mom. My own mother. The woman who raised me. The one who sat with me when I had the flu, who packed my lunch every morning in 3rd grade, who kissed my scraped knees and told me not to cry. And yet, there I was. Imagining things I shouldn't have. That night, I stood in front of the fridge. Opened it. Cold air hit my face like a slap. I just stood there, staring at the contents. Same stuff. Water. Sandwiches. Leftover banana bread. I didn't want any of it. What I wanted, I couldn't say out loud. Not even to myself. I'd love to say I wasn't doing anything that night. That I was just lying in bed like a normal kid, scrolling through my phone, mind somewhere far away from the edge I kept dancing on. But that wouldn't be the truth. I'd been in my room for hours. The lights were low, the curtains drawn, and the door shut, tight this time. And the hum of the fridge was louder than usual, or maybe I just noticed it more because my breathing was ragged, uneven, shallow. It had become a routine I never talked about. A way to release all the tension that built up during the day. The confusion. The loneliness. The hunger, not just physical but emotional. The kind that sits on your chest and presses down until you have no choice but to respond somehow. I thought I was alone. I was sure of it. I'd locked the door. Or at least I thought I had. She came in without knocking. Hazel. Mom. She had a laundry basket in her arms. I think she was humming to herself, something quiet, almost sweet. Maybe trying to fill the house with something that didn't feel so heavy. And then the door opened. Just like that. Her feet crossed the threshold. I was mid-motion. Half covered. Everything exposed. I froze, hands still, eyes wide, pulse racing so fast I thought my heart would stop from sheer panic. And she stood there. The laundry slipped from her hands. The sound of the basket hitting the floor didn't even register at first. All I could see was her eyes. The way they widened. How her breath hitched just enough to break the silence between us. She didn't scream. Didn't yell. Didn't even flinch. She just stared. Her gaze moved down, slow, hesitant, and landed on the towels bunched near my bed, the slight rise under the blanket, the obvious. It was all there. No hiding. No pretending. Time didn't just slow down, it stopped. My body went stiff with shame. I wanted the earth to swallow me whole. Wanted to vanish. To erase every moment that led up to that second. But I couldn't move. I couldn't even breathe right. And she didn't leave. She should have. That's what a normal person would do, right? Step back. Close the door. Pretend nothing ever happened and burn the memory from both our minds. But Hazel didn't leave. She lingered. Frozen in place, yes, but still, there. Her eyes didn't rise to meet mine right away. They just stayed there, locked on that part of me that wasn't supposed to be visible to her. Her lips parted, like she meant to say something but forgot how to form words. And for a second, she looked like a woman I didn't recognize. Not my mother. Not the woman who once made pancakes shaped like dinosaurs. Not the woman who used to braid her hair in the bathroom mirror while singing 90s love songs. Not even the woman who broke down quietly the night my dad left. This version of her was different. Raw. Lost. Hungry in a way that had nothing to do with food. She blinked hard and took a breath like she was coming out of a trance. "Are you okay?" she asked, her voice just above a whisper. I couldn't speak. My throat felt like it had closed up. Every muscle in my body was clenched, my brain screaming for this moment to end, for her to walk away and let me bury myself in shame privately. But I couldn't answer her. And she didn't leave. She looked down again. This time slower. Her expression changed, not into horror or anger, but something else. Something I couldn't process right away. Curiosity, maybe. A kind of stunned sadness. Her hand shook, barely. One finger hooked under the edge of her sleeve as she fiddled with the fabric. She stepped closer, not much, but enough that I could smell her. That same soft scent from before. Floral, but not overwhelming. Comforting. Familiar. She reached out, but stopped midway, fingers trembling just inches from my blanket. Then she pulled them back and looked at me again, waiting for some kind of permission. Something unspoken. But I didn't say anything. I didn't even nod. I just stayed there. Frozen. Not from fear, not anymore. Something else was happening, something I didn't have the tools to explain or understand. Then she did something I'll never forget. She walked around to the side of the bed and sat. Slowly. Gently. Not like she was trying to be seductive or force anything. More like she was afraid to break whatever fragile thing existed between us in that moment. And still, I didn't move. I couldn't. Because I didn't know if I should scream or cry or run or pull away or lean into her. My heart was pounding so hard I felt it in my ears. She didn't touch me. Not yet. But the space between us felt heavy. Charged. Her breathing was shallow. Her fingers curled tightly into her lap. Her eyes refused to meet mine again. And something shifted in the room. Something we couldn't take back. Looking back now, I know what that silence was. It was the sound of a line being erased. A line neither of us were supposed to cross. If I could tell you how it started, I mean, if I could go back and mark the exact second when everything tipped over the edge, I would, but the truth is, it didn't feel like a moment at all. It felt like we'd been walking toward this edge slowly, quietly, without really looking down, until suddenly, there was no more ground left beneath us. She was still sitting there beside me, Hazel, her hand resting on the blanket, and I could feel the heat of it even through the thin cotton, and I knew exactly what was happening. I knew what that warmth meant, but somehow my body couldn't process it fast enough to react. It should have felt abrupt, but it didn't. It felt soft, dangerously soft. Like the kind of silence you only hear in a snow-covered forest where even sound is afraid to echo too loud. Her hand didn't leap into motion. It hesitated. Trembled a little. And then, with the kind of deliberate gentleness you'd expect from someone petting a wounded animal, she began to move, not with any sense of lust or urgency, but with a heartbreaking slowness that felt more like grief than desire. There was something in her touch that didn't scream possession or power. It whispered need. It was as if she were asking a question through her fingertips, unsure if she even wanted the answer. I didn't know what to do. My thoughts weren't thoughts, they were broken flashes, disjointed images, fragments of memory and morality crashing into one another, and through all of it, I lay there like a mannequin, rigid and breathless, letting her hand guide the moment as though it didn't belong to either of us. I should have stopped her. I should have pulled away, pushed her hand off me, said her name in a voice that reminded her who she was, who I was, who we were supposed to be. But I didn't. And maybe that's the part one can't forgive myself for, not the moment itself, but the way I surrendered to it, the way I let the tension wash over me like a wave too big to swim against. She didn't force anything. She didn't press me or speak or ask. She just stayed there beside me, hand moving slowly, deliberately, like she had all the time in the world and nothing left to lose. I don't think she was even aware of herself. I think she'd left her body long before her fingers found mine. There was no eye contact. She didn't look at me, and I didn't look at her. We weren't two people facing each other, we were shadows in a dim room, responding to instincts we didn't know how to name, drawn together by some horrible, aching gravity that had nothing to do with love and everything to do with absence. I didn't feel pleasure in the way I usually did. It wasn't like before, when I'd be alone and free to disappear into fantasy. This was something else entirely, something twisted and hollow and surreal, like watching yourself in a dream you didn't ask to have. And when it ended, when my body gave in and every muscle went slack with release, she pulled her hand back slowly, so slowly it almost felt like she was apologizing, not with words, but with silence and shame and the careful way her fingertips retreated from my skin. She stood up without looking at me. Adjusted her robe at the waist with trembling hands. She moved like someone emerging from water, like she'd been holding her breath for too long and didn't want to face the air. And then, in a voice so quiet I almost didn't hear it, she said, "Good night." She turned and left. The door remained ajar. And just like that, she was gone. I didn't move. Not for minutes. Not for hours. I lay there, blanketed in a numbness so complete it felt like I'd been buried alive. My eyes stayed fixed on the ceiling, watching the patterns in the plaster blur and unblur as my vision fought against the darkness, and every breath I took felt like it wasn't mine, like I was borrowing air I didn't deserve. I didn't feel like a man. Didn't feel like a son, or a victim, or anything that made sense. I just felt displaced. Like the floor beneath me had shifted an inch to the left while the rest of the world kept pretending everything was normal. For the next 3 days, I didn't leave that room. The walls closed in just a little more each hour. The fridge kept humming in the corner, its quiet buzz reminding me that the world hadn't stopped spinning, even if I had. I didn't eat. I barely drank. I sat in the same clothes, unshowered, unshaven, unrecognizable even to myself. And outside my door, I heard nothing. No knocks. No footsteps. No gentle calls asking if I wanted food. Hazel had vanished, not literally, but emotionally. She'd become a ghost in the house, moving only when necessary, saying nothing at all. She didn't try to explain. Didn't try to fix. And somehow, that silence hurt more than anything she could have said. I started to feel the weight of what had happened in pieces. It didn't come all at once. It wasn't like waking up with regret. It was slower, like grief. First, there was confusion. Then guilt. Then shame. Then silence again. And each time I cycled through those feelings, I'd land in a place even emptier than before. I kept telling myself it was her fault. That I didn't ask for it. That I didn't participate. But that wasn't entirely true, was it? I didn't stop her. And that made me complicit. Even if I was too broken to resist. She didn't touch me again after that night. Didn't come near my room. Didn't so much as glance in my direction when we crossed paths in the hallway. It was like she'd built a wall around herself overnight, thick enough to keep out memory, remorse, and me. And maybe that was the worst part of all. Not the act itself, but the void it left. The way our home went from cold to unbearable. We weren't family anymore. We were strangers. Two people tiptoeing around the ruins of something we both helped destroy, but neither of us could name. Time didn't just slow down after that night, it fractured. Days blurred together like brushstrokes smeared across wet canvas, colors bleeding into each other until I couldn't tell what was real and what I imagined. I'd sit in class, dead-eyed and unfocused, the teacher's voice distant, like it was coming from underwater. The words never landed. They'd float around me, meaningless, weightless, and eventually, I stopped trying to catch them. Friends noticed, at least the few I had left. Kaysen asked once if I was okay, said I looked pale, like I hadn't slept in days. I nodded, told him I was fine, lied with the kind of ease that scared me. He didn't press. Nobody ever did. But the truth was, I wasn't okay. I wasn't fine. I was unraveling from the inside out. And the worst part? I couldn't stop seeing her. Not just physically, but in my mind, everywhere I went. She was there in the back of my skull, stitched into every quiet moment. One second I'd be trying to solve a math problem, and the next, I'd see her eyes the way they looked that night, half lost, half hungry. It didn't feel like memory. It felt like possession. She had imprinted herself into the darkest corners of my thoughts, and no matter how hard I tried to shove her out, some part of me kept letting her stay. I hated it. I hated her. I hated myself even more. I started avoiding mirrors. Couldn't look at myself. Every time I caught my own reflection, in the bathroom, in the rear view of the bus, in the black mirror of my phone screen before it lit up, I saw someone I didn't recognize. Someone weaker. Someone twisted. Someone who let something unthinkable happen and said nothing. I'd lie awake at night with my eyes open, the ceiling spinning above me, and I'd replay it again, the curve of her hand, the stillness of her breath, the slow retreat when it was over. I didn't understand what part of her had done that. But even worse, I didn't understand what part of me had let it happen. And she was disappearing in her own way, too. Hazel stopped trying to be anything at all. She moved like a shadow in the hallway, slow, quiet, blurred at the edges. Some nights, I'd hear her in the bathroom, the faucet running long after she'd stopped using it, like she was trying to drown the sound of her own thoughts. I once caught a glimpse of her through the crack in her bedroom door. She was sitting at her vanity, face in her hands, the mirror catching her from behind. She didn't see me watching. But I saw her. And it broke something inside me. She didn't look like my mom anymore. Not the woman who used to laugh while pouring orange juice into my cereal as a joke. Not the woman who once scolded me for staying up too late watching horror movies, only to fall asleep on the couch beside me because she wanted to keep me company. No, this version of her was hollow. She sat there in that mirror night after night, staring into her own face like she was trying to find the girl she used to be. But all she found was guilt. I think she tried to justify it at first. Tried to convince herself it was a moment. A slip. A weakness born from too much emptiness and not enough touch. But I could see it, in the way she flinched every time I entered a room, in the way her eyes never lingered on mine for more than a second, in the way her voice thinned into something barely audible when she said things like good morning or dinner's on the counter. She didn't believe her own story anymore. And neither did I. We lived in a house with no music, no laughter, no warmth. Just two ghosts sharing a space built for the living. And in that silence, we both relived it, over and over. She in her mirror. Me in my bed. Parallel flashbacks playing in rooms separated by a single thin wall. I wondered if her memory of it was different. Did she remember the heat of my skin under her fingers? Did she hear my breath catch? Did she feel her own hands shake when it was over? Did she stay up afterward, like I did, staring at the ceiling, praying it had all been a hallucination brought on by exhaustion and grief? The tension didn't explode. It never got loud. We didn't fight. We didn't scream. That might have helped, honestly. Might have forced us to deal with it, to bleed it out through words, even angry ones. But instead, it just simmered. Every meal eaten in silence. Every footstep measured. Every interaction rehearsed to avoid the thing neither of us could name. And yet, beneath all of it, there was still that quiet ache. Not for more, never for more. But for clarity. For peace. For some impossible return to who we used to be before the world turned sideways. We both wanted out of the prison we'd made of our house. But neither of us knew how to find the key. It didn't happen the way I thought it would. There was no outburst. No sudden scream. No slammed doors or shattered plates. It happened on a Tuesday. Quiet. Ordinary. One of those evenings where the sky outside turns gray before you even realize the sun's gone. She made dinner, just pasta, nothing fancy, and left 2 plates out. I hadn't eaten with her in weeks. We'd grown used to silence, comfortable with avoidance. But that night, I couldn't hold it in anymore. I sat across from her, fork in hand, staring at the food but not tasting it. My chest felt tight. My throat even tighter. And without warning, the words just slipped out, raw, trembling, barely above a whisper. "Why did you do it?" Her fork stopped midair. She didn't look up right away. Her hand trembled, just slightly, and when she finally lifted her eyes to meet mine, they were already glassy. "I don't know," she said, voice cracking like glass under pressure. I didn't yell. I couldn't. The anger I thought I'd stored up all this time, it didn't come out like fire. It came out like water. Tears. I couldn't stop them. They spilled before I could stop them, soft and silent and ugly. "I needed you to be my mom," I said. "And instead, you did that." She started crying too. Her shoulders shook, and she buried her face in her hands like she couldn't bear the weight of herself. "I was broken," she said. "I didn't feel like a woman anymore. I didn't feel anything. I was weak, Knox. I know what I did. I know how wrong it was. And if I could take it back, I would." We sat there like that, 2 shattered people at a table too small to hold the weight of what we carried. I wiped my eyes and looked at her. Really looked at her. And for the first time in months, I didn't see the version of her from that night. I saw a mother who made a horrible mistake. A human being drowning in guilt. And I told her the only truth I had left. "I don't hate you," I said. "But I don't know how to live here anymore." She didn't argue. She didn't beg. She nodded. And the next morning, she packed a suitcase. Just a small one. Said she would stay with her sister for a while. Said she'd already started looking into therapy. Said she didn't want to make things worse by staying. I didn't hug her when she left. But I watched her go. And that was enough. In the weeks that followed, I started to breathe again. Not fully. Not easily. But enough to notice it. I talked to Kason one night. Told him bits and pieces. Not the whole truth, not yet, but enough to feel like I wasn't trapped inside my own head anymore. He didn't judge me. Just sat with me. Listened. And I realized how much I needed that. How much I'd needed someone all along. Hazel kept her promise. She went to therapy. Got help. Stopped avoiding herself in the mirror. She wrote me a letter a few months later. Not asking for forgiveness, just explaining. She said she was learning how to live with her mistake. Said she hoped, one day, I could live without it defining me. I haven't responded. Not yet. But I still have the letter. And me? I'm still healing. I talk more now. I sleep a little better. I've started taking long walks in the evening just to clear my head. Sometimes I still wake up in a cold sweat. Sometimes I hear the fridge humming and it takes me back to a place I never asked to visit. But healing isn't a straight line. And I'm learning, slowly, that I don't have to be ashamed of the fact that I'm not okay. Not all the time. Some wounds aren't visible. They don't bleed or bruise or scar where others can see them. They live beneath the skin. Quiet. persistent, waiting to be acknowledged. But healing, real healing, starts the moment you stop hiding from the pain. The moment you say it out loud. The moment you let someone else see the worst of you, and they don't turn away. If you've stayed with me this far, thank you. I know this wasn't an easy story to hear. It wasn't easy to tell. But now, I want to ask you something. What would you have done in my shoes? If someone you trusted, someone who was supposed to protect you, crossed that line, could you forgive them? Would you ever speak to them again? Do you think Hazel deserves forgiveness? Or are some things just too far gone? And if you've ever had a complicated family dynamic, one filled with silence, confusion, or pain, share your story in the comments. Someone out there might feel less alone just by hearing yours. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video if it moved you. We tell these stories not to shock, but to understand. To bring light into places most people are afraid to look. And maybe, just maybe, to help someone begin again.